It's another fine day for Extinction. My channel's been doing pretty great on TikTok recently. Hey Renee, how's it going? Guten Tag. Yeah, I've gained like close to 100,000 views in the last 2 or 3 days on my channel, which is pretty big for me. Gained hundreds of followers out of it. It's all started with this one video that just went viral for no reason. It got like 70,000 views about antinatalism, and I had absolutely no idea it was going to get that many views. I just, put the camera up, made a video, and posted it. Sometimes you just get lucky. For some reason, everyone engaged like crazy with that video, though. The engagement was nuts. So yeah, maybe I should, try and reverse engineer that. I kind of made a few other videos about it, like a vegan video, an environmentalism video, but they didn't have the same sort of success. Oh, thank you, Alto Stratus. It's very nice of you to say. We're not in it for celebrity status, though, or donations or anything like that. Our only goal really is to grow the movement, get more activists in the movement fighting for the end of suffering. Do I have any kids? No, I don't. But extinctionists like myself support human reproduction. Humans have to keep reproducing, otherwise animals won't have anyone around to help them. The universe won't have anyone to help them, potentially. So how do we fight for the end of suffering? Anything actionable? Yeah. So step one is grow the movement, right? You can't achieve anything without a movement, without people working on the project, without resources. The movement is the base for everything. So, and the movement is very small at the minute, so that makes it hard to, open a laboratory or launch a political campaign or anything like that. It would be very achieve anything movement so that we can achieve more. So yes, if you want to help end suffering, then you can help us grow the movement. It's a very easy thing to do, even if you have 5 minutes a day. You can just make a text card with music, post on TikTok. To do that, it's an option. So even something like that, we could help you get into it. And that is, it would literally take 1 minute a day. So you don't have to be a scientist to do activism as your full-time thing. Even 5 minutes a day would be more than enough to get on board. And part of being an activist means joining our WhatsApp group, our Discord group, learning alongside us, right? Contributing to decisions, saying, oh no, I know about this, I think we should do this instead. Or if you have some technical expertise, some knowledge about how to do marketing, about how to manage a website, even just decision making, what should we make a video about? Being an activist means not just going out and making videos, but it also means being part of the think tank. Now, as I was saying, I did actually get loads of views and followers over the last couple of days, and many of them flooded into our Discord server, but they were pretty much all trolls, unfortunately. Finding good activists for the pro-extinction movement is like, we would literally be happy with one every 4 months. That seems to be about the average, to find a good, reliable person that's not a troll or not insane. So we've had Renee, we've had Kevin from Canada. Who else have we had? The team currently consists of me, Steve, Renee, Luke, Kevin. In terms of consistent and very reliable people, who else have we got? We've got Renee. She does a lot of our video editing. We've got Lachlan, he does video editing. We've got Saran, he does loads of stuff. We've got Sunny, she helps with TikTok. Who else have we got? We've got a new guy called Bruno from Brazil. He seems to be pretty smart, relatively speaking, but we'll see. But no big red flags just yet. Who else have we got? That's probably about it. There's some less core members than that. There's Kiruthika, there's Peter. There's quite a few other people hanging around who are sort of affiliated or in the movement, basically. But it's very difficult to get anyone else. Very, very difficult. How old do you have to be a part of the team? Our youngest member is Renee from Germany, and they are 16 years old. So I'd say you got to be at least maybe 15 or 16 would probably be good. I mean, we would even take a 14-year-old if they seem to be genuinely smart and trustworthy. So Renee is only 16, but they are extremely committed to the movement already. They've been doing street protests for extinctionism. They've actually been going out onto the street with signs, protesting, filming the interviews and the debates that come about. They've done loads of videos on Instagram and TikTok. So Renee is virtually considered leadership in the movement. Certainly the leader of Germany for extinctionism. So yeah, it's more about sort of your mental maturity, I guess. Hello, how's it going?
Hi, yeah, it's going well.
Good to hear.
I was curious on your prompt. I don't know if you can give me kind of just like a brief rundown of what you believe.
Yeah, so as extinctionists and empathetic people, we believe that the only right thing to do is to fight against suffering, and anything else is selfish and exploitative and wrong, basically. So in that sense, only total extinction ends all suffering and prevents future generations from being forced into lives that they didn't ask for, they didn't want, and then they suffer terribly and it's horrible for them. Not for all of them necessarily, but, really only the lucky ones benefit from being forced to exist. So we're fighting for the unlucky ones, we're fighting for even the lucky ones to also be safe from suffering.
Sure. I mean, if somebody, let's say in their own individual life was suffering greatly, what would prevent them from stopping their own suffering? Like, why would you need to do that for them?
The thing is, just leaving it up to people is never going to achieve anything. So you do need a body that's going to enforce protection from suffering, basically.
Okay, got it. So basically, you're kind of just assuming that the majority of people are really suffering, and you don't think that they should have the right to determine what they do with the suffering. You think that you should ultimately be able to put them out of their misery?
Well, that might sound like a nice fantasy for you to attack, but that's actually very far from the reality. So we actually
Why don't you just respond to what I said?
What do you think I'm doing? So we actually prioritize humanity continuing strong and healthy. We're against any humans doing self-harm or antinatalism. Humanity has to keep reproducing and survive because we are the vehicle to help others. If humanity goes extinct, then animals will continue suffering for hundreds of millions of years. So we should make animals go extinct first. And we should also try and do universe-wide extinction because the universe will probably be full of victims suffering who will benefit from extinction for the universe. Now, is that a big job? Yeah, sure. But the thing is, as extinctionists and empathetic people, it doesn't matter how big the job is, right? As long as it's a greater amount of suffering than our own. So the thing is, obviously, the universe represents an insanely massive amount of suffering and potential suffering. So compared to Earth, we are a drop. Earth is a drop in the ocean compared to the universe, just as humans are a drop in the ocean compared to animals on Earth. So the plan is basically to, if we controlled the planet tomorrow, we would begin with animal extinction on Earth, removing our dependence on animals at the same time, and also launching and beginning the main project, which is universal extinction or cosmic extinction. Unfortunately, the universe and nature is just one big hotbed for suffering, extreme suffering. It's just a terrible thing. The sort of easy way to think about it and to conceptualize it is that effectively, and we are atheistic, but effectively we are in hell, and the entire universe is hell, right? And it is spawning new victims to torture them. Only the very, very small minority benefit from this forced existence, and usually it's by exploiting the others, right? So if the entire universe is basically hell, then yes, total extinction is our moral obligation to prevent suffering, to prevent anyone from suffering. Even if, it's a minority, we should still help them. There's no excuse for not fighting against suffering. The only excuse is to be selfish, right? Obviously. So we're against being selfish. We are for being selfless and helping to fight against suffering as much as possible, because that's the only really bad thing in the world is suffering. So we've got a guest joining us. Hello.
Hey, how you doing, James?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, so this is the I'm doing well. Yeah, this is the first time I've heard of this type of idea, and so I've heard about what is like antinatalism, where like people just don't believe in having children anymore because of like the suffering. But I've never heard about this happening on like a cosmic scale, I guess. So I guess like one question I would have like is part of like the larger plan. Say if like it's successful and all life is removed, all sentient life maybe. Is there also like plans to like maybe set up the universe in a means for like life to not arise again?
Yeah, that's the main part of the plan. So the majority of planets in the universe are approaching, in terms of the time we are since the universe began, they are approaching the perfect time for life to develop. They are approaching their Goldilocks zones. So we expect that there, probably is some life in the universe, but that, according to our estimations, the vast majority of it is still to come, still to develop. And so, yeah, preventing life from developing on planets and, anywhere else potentially is the majority of the mission. And then, obviously, if you kind of scale it all the way to the end, we have to research whether or not the universe and the Big Bang is cyclical. It's possible that it's just been going on for, forever, or, for who knows how long. So it's not just about, ending all suffering in the universe. That's definitely a big goal, a fantastic goal. But beyond there, we should see what else we could do. Make sure that the universe isn't going to restart, or make sure there aren't any other universes. Now, the extinctionism is all about being scientific and just doing as much as possible. So we aren't saying that we definitely can get past our galaxy or even past our solar system. But we are saying that we should do everything possible. And so it's a selfless sort of perspective that you have to really understand it. Whereas the selfish perspective is kind of, having a smaller circle. Our circle of empathy and moral obligation is as big as possible, essentially. Whereas for most people, it's the opposite. You know, they only care about their family, they only care about their race, whatever it is.
Mhm. All right, so I guess so for you, is it primarily like all life? Like, would something that's not sentient, like maybe like bacteria, would that be something that you guys are also aim to eradicate?
Yeah, because it can just as easily develop into, you know, more complex life. So that would definitely prevent, you know, that from happening. So yeah, it's all about prevention, really.
Okay,
And
that's what I thought. I just wanted
I,
to make sure I was understanding you correctly. I guess, like, honestly, like, to me, like I've never really considered this idea. Like, I do get the idea that people are born, they are going to experience like hardships in their lives, like, and it's like it is a form of suffering. But I guess is there no circumstance where you think that the pleasure or like the good things that people experience in life might outweigh the suffering?
well, even if it somehow did, it would still be exploitative and cruel. So unless you're against suffering and you want it to end permanently, then you're essentially allowing some for benefit, right? Because you think it will benefit yourself or someone else. But that's not fair to the victims. Nobody should have to suffer. And suffering is so extreme and terrible that it's not something that you can really use to as a bargaining chip. So that, you know, so someone can have a shallow life of Netflix and pizza while, you know, a child is being tortured to death for that sake, right? So suffering is far too extreme, and the risk of it is virtually unlimited, right? The people that say, "Oh, we should allow a bit of suffering so that we can benefit," they're effectively allowing unlimited suffering, unlimited severity of suffering. You know, they don't care how badly the victims suffer for their benefit, right? It's a cruel thing, it's a wrong thing. So we have to be completely against suffering. And the value of life and the pleasures of life are worthless in comparison to the importance of safety from suffering and defending the innocents.
Yeah, well, I think I we are on the same page as far as like we agree that suffering is bad. Like we don't want to cause suffering or like expand suffering for the maximum amount of people. But I do struggle when it comes to these types of things where it's not clear how we can quantify if like suffering has like a greater weight than like the joys that come in life. So I don't know. I feel like on like a value scale, it's hard. It's like there's no math to actually equate.
Well,
Hey, which one
that's
is?
it's an exploitative and, you know, we should allow some children to get tortured to death because we might maybe benefit from it, right? So that's wrong. It's cruel, and you should have a zero tolerance policy on suffering and victims. Otherwise, you're willing to be evil, basically, right? You can't be a good person while saying, yes, those children should be raped to death, right? So
Well,
that,
no. Like I do think like while still promoting the continuation of humanity, we could still try to like account for things such as that so that they don't happen anymore. So of course, like reducing suffering as much as possible while still like promoting the pleasures as much as possible.
right, but you know, anything less than a zero tolerance policy on suffering is wrong, right? It's cruel and unnecessary. It's unfair.
Yeah,
So
well, I guess like if there could be like some type of system where people are immediately born into like a simulation where they do just experience like a maybe a VR heaven, could this be like an alternative, or do you think that there's no means in which someone can only have a pleasurable experience from start to finish of life?
yeah, so that is a possibility. But the thing is, we you know we don't need animals suffering pointlessly, right? So if you want to look at it from a life optimization point of view, then we should definitely not allow life to be born into unsafe conditions. And if we want to start thinking about creating life in happy conditions, then the standard has to be 100% safety from suffering. Like literally, it's physically impossible for it to go wrong somehow. Otherwise, it's unfair to the victims.
Okay, so I guess like the time in which, or I guess like this, the risk of some of these systems failing to just create like this utopia where there's only pleasure in the universe, even like that risk is just also something that is hoped to be like removed.
If there was a utopia with 99% safety, it would still be unfair and wrong to the victims, right? So
Mm.
the victims aren't there to be exploited. They aren't there for you to torture them and to benefit from it. Their suffering is far too extreme and terrible to just be some sort of bargaining chip. Okay, so you're never going to have a good society or a good morality while you're saying, you see that child being tortured to death. That's fine because I'm benefiting from it, right? So you have to have a zero tolerance policy on exploitation and cruelty. Otherwise, you're not a good person. Basically, you're willing to condemn innocents to suffer for pleasure.
Yeah, okay, well, it seems like I don't know, it seems like internally this goal is going to be almost working against itself because if there's a zero tolerance policy for promoting like suffering, you have to like to accomplish this mission, people are going to have to keep on reproducing, like you said. We're going to have to expand across the cosmos and the galaxies to
Yeah.
achieve this. And so it seems like, hey, do the
But the thing
means
is,
justify the ends?
yeah, but the zero tolerance policy on suffering is something that we have to achieve. It's something we have to work towards, right? Otherwise, it's not a true zero tolerance policy. It would be a selfish thing. So yes, you might have to cause or allow some suffering in order to end all suffering, but that is the lesser of two evils, obviously. So yeah,
I don't know. I feel like that's like a moral issue. I don't think I've ever like found like a convincing or a comfortable answer around. Like I don't know if
be more
the
specific.
means justify
What
the
are you
ends.
what are you referring to? So, like, have you
As
ever
far
seen
as
a
like,
police officer tackle a criminal? Would you shake your head? No, you probably wouldn't. You'd say, "Yeah, tackle that criminal. Prevent that suffering. Defend the victims." Right. So the whole idea that people wanting to defend the victims of suffering should do it in a pacifist way is actually it's almost like trying to gaslight and trick us into not being effective at defending the victims, and trying to trick us into using methods that aren't going to work, basically. So yeah, that would be silly. We're never going to adopt that policy. Nobody adopts that policy in the entire world. And if you told a police officer not to use force, he'd probably laugh at you, as he should do.
yeah, well, I've heard like the saying like, oh, if you don't stand against oppression, you're like supporting it and things such as that. But I do feel like that's a bit of a it's a mischaracterization of what's going on. Like I don't think that
Is it?
being like aware of something that's going on and not at all times like 100% working towards like the eradication of it is you supporting it.
Well, the out of sight, out of mind mentality is another way to exploit others, right? It's saying, I'm watching my film. I don't want to turn my film off and help that child next door that's being, assaulted to death because, I don't have to watch them. They're in a different house, so I'm just going to keep watching my film and yeah, screw them, basically. So
Yeah,
that's what
I guess when you say exploit,
um,
what's like your definition or understanding of like exploitation?
making or allowing others to suffer for pleasure and for benefit.
Okay, and I guess the allowing someone like next door that's being like tortured and like turning a blind eye to it, is that
My point is,
you
is
say
that
that's exploitation because you're
you shouldn't
more
need the
comfortable by
suffering
ignoring
right
it?
in front of you. You shouldn't need the suffering to be visibly in front of you to do something about it, right? That's it's an avoidance tactic, right? I don't want moral obligations, so I'm not going to go and look for it. I'm going to bury my head in the sand so that I don't feel guilty, and I can just get back to Netflix.
Yeah,
So
well, I
that's
don't think
not.
it's like the case where like you like like if you see like something bad happening, of course intervene. But I do think it's different to like for us, or for this example, we build a craft just so we can go to another planet to find other creatures and then by some means like eradicate them. So I don't know if that's like sterilization to do it like non-painfully, you know,
Like
so
I
it's like
said, like I
as
said,
humane as
so
possible.
the thing is, you're thinking from a selfish mentality of, oh, do we have to help other people? Bloody hell, that sounds like a right bother. So while you've got that selfish mentality, you're never going to get it, basically.
Yeah, I guess for like your morality standpoint, are you a moral like objectivist, subjectivist?
I don't really use philosophy terms like that. They're just very unhelpful. Yeah.
Okay, I guess like when it comes like to morals, do you think it's like the right or like the good is like a thing out there that is to be achieved, or do you think it is an opinion or like a label that people assign to things?
Well, it's very simple again. If you're allowing suffering for benefit, then that's wrong, right? That's selfish. And we shouldn't do that. We should be selfless. We should try and help others, right? We should try to be good people, try to be better people. And as long as you and the rest of humanity maintain this mentality of no, 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 we shouldn't try and be good. We shouldn't try and help others. We should just, have our pizza and Netflix and forget the world, right? As long as you have that mentality, you're going to live in a bad world, a selfish world, a cruel world, and it's never going to get better because that the limit is being a good person. It's being selfless. It's, if nobody is fighting for what's right and everyone's being selfish, then you're never going to have a good world, right? So even from a selfish perspective, you should be selfless.
Okay, well, I guess like in like the scenario where you have no life at all, that's not a good world because there is no
But you see,
like there's
it's a good
nothing to
world.
like
It
experience
is a good
it. So
world,
like
but you don't need anyone to experience it. That's some sort of selfish obsession that you've got, right? Safety is more important than shallow, fleeting pleasures, right? Of the privileged. No child should be murdered or tortured to death just so that some privileged, selfish person can enjoy a sunset.
I get what you're saying as far as like we want to eliminate like, the bad things happening to people. As long as people are alive, bad things will happen to them inevitably. Like we agree on that front. But that's why I was trying to kind of understand like is your morality objective or subjective when it comes to these things? Because if it seems like it's the case that it's objective. It's like goodness is safety because you value safety above all these other pleasures, and it's objectively the case that safety is better than like the momentary fleeting joys of life.
I think while you're still in the selfish mentality and mindset, you're just not going to get it. Extinctionists are people that are looking at the world and deciding what's right and what's wrong for it. Okay. So, we've decided that we shouldn't have children tortured to death so that some selfish, privileged scumbags can have fun at their expense.
Okay, so I guess like the group of extinctionists, they amongst themselves decide like their standard for like what is best for other people. But what if those other people don't agree with that and they don't like this plan?
Well,
Would you like
there's always
force
going to be
this
people.
upon the
There's
universe?
always going to be bad people that want suffering to continue unfairly, but yeah, we're going to do whatever we have to solve that problem.
Okay, so I guess like as far as like producing the extinctions, what's like the popular idea?
How do you mean?
Well, you say that like we have to stop animals from existing, we need to stop humans and like all life from existing at some point. Like via what means?
So let's imagine that humanity becomes extinctionist tomorrow. We would work to remove our dependence on animals for oxygen and for food, etc., while also removing the animal population so that we could have, ideally, a planet with no animals but still habitable. And then we would also, at the same time, be working towards cosmic extinction and, how to go about it. So, we would have to start doing the science, doing all of the research, and exploring the best way forward.
Okay, well, I guess what I'm trying to say. So for like the animals that are currently present, is the goal to like to sterilize them so that they don't reproduce, or is it more of like you want to speed up the process and you would unalive them like yourself?
So we would use euthanasia. Sterilization is actually ineffective and it's also cruel. It still leaves them to suffer and to be tortured, and it also leaves them with psychological and hormonal problems as well. So no, sterilization is really bad, actually. Euthanasia is definitely the most ethical and the best way to protect them from suffering and to guarantee that there's no future generations to suffer.
Okay, and of course, like in this scenario, playing along with it, humans succeed. They've eradicated all other life, like sentient life. I'm assuming you're gonna take out the vegetation too at some point.
Yep.
But now you are to like the humans. Is it just the assumption that everyone agrees with it all the way through, and like there is no interfighting?
It's hard to predict the future, right?
Yeah, and so I know like in the hypothetical, but it's like so. But hypothetically, if there is now a person that's like, hey, I actually don't want to like go along with this plan. Is it the case that now like this person will be forcibly euthanized?
I mean, most humans will probably just be, living normal lives under an extinctionist government. They might be, instead of having a military pointlessly patrolling and spending trillions on it, there would be no more wars anymore. There would just be peace, right? So the efficiency gains would be massive, and we would, we would still need cleaners and whatever else, right? So, all of these people that don't want to carry out the extinction mission, they're still going to be, happily living their lives and safe. And again, the, human extinction is probably going to be very far in the future. So it's difficult to, understand what it's going to look like at that point. Maybe everyone will have accepted it by then and it will just be the status quo, the norm, if you will. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess so. I guess at what point would it be like where? Because there's some people that are resistant and they keep on saying, "Well, I'm not going to keep on having a family. Like I want children,"
if
and
we
they
have
continue
to
to reproduce.
yeah. If we have to just go and euthanize them, we'll do it.
Okay, yeah, and so I think that's the part where I assumed at some point, like, yeah, there's going to be resistance, and it seems like that is the point where, hey, the goal is. It seems like it's just, I don't know. It seems like a little extra cruel to when just because you have
You
this
think ending
idea, you think
suffering is
this is
cruel?
better.
You think ending suffering is cruel?
No, I think the way in which it's being done. Like I said, I'm not sure if like the means just if
Can you
the end
suggest
justifies
a
the
better way?
means.
Can you suggest a better way?
Oh, to stop all suffering?
Yeah.
No, I'm not sure I could. I would have to think about that.
Okay.
If
So
I'm being honest.
when you come up with that idea, let us know, and we'll probably tell you it's a terrible idea, but we'll hear you out.
Uh, Probably, like I don't. Yeah, probably. Because I don't know. Personally, I'm not really sure if I'm
I get
interested.
you. Thanks for coming on, Matthew. Maybe check out our website, proextinction.com. Read more about us. We have a lengthy FAQ. We have our manifesto. And if you have any more questions, you can join our Discord and chat to us there. Me and the rest of the team, several activists will be happy to talk to you in our Discord at any time. It's around the clock, basically. You can also just Google Abolish Suffering Discord and join us that way. Right, on to the next person in the queue. No, looks like they've left. And, oh, yes. Hello.
Hi,
How's it going?
how's it going?
Good, good.
It's going good.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I guess this is very interesting. So, my first question would be, in your worldview, right? No amount of it doesn't matter the amount of suffering. So no suffering is good. It doesn't matter the extent, right? You want to get rid of all suffering.
A stubbed toe in heaven, would probably be acceptable, but that's not the world that we live in. So yeah, children being raped and tortured to death, that is unacceptable. Yeah.
Okay, so I still didn't get a clear answer. So the kids being tortured, like when I imagine suffering, that's probably like and there probably is that I'm not aware of, but that's to me on the if it was a spectrum, that's probably more on the extreme side of suffering.
No, that's actually the majority of suffering. The majority of suffering in this world is wild animals in nature, and most of them have a torturous, painful life and a painful death during childhood, usually as babies, right? So that is the majority experience on this planet and probably in the universe.
Is wildlife?
Say again?
You said wildlife is the most extreme type of suffering?
They have the worst conditions, they get eaten alive en masse, and they are the biggest population on our planet as well.
Okay, I can agree with that. And then what about for humans? Do you think there's anything worse than a child maybe suffering that we can imagine of?
I mean, there's loads of different types of suffering, but our standard for life and the standard that life deserves is 100% safety from suffering. So if you don't have safety, then life shouldn't exist, right? It's wrong to allow life to exist in cruel and dangerous conditions where it's going to have a really bad time. So only, if you have literally 100% safety, is it fair? Because anything less than that is unfair to the victims that suffer as a result.
I agree with you on that point. So my second question, I guess, is where I'm confused with this whole thing, and I'll get to it in a minute, right? Is what about you? Do you think that you're a good person? Do you think that you cause any suffering or have caused suffering in the past?
I'm sure I've caused loads of suffering. Yeah, I mean, who hasn't, right? But I mean, I try to be a good person.
Right. So let's say I believe what you believe, right? And you're a person that has caused suffering, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better then if you were never born then? You see what I'm saying?
Well, it's the same kind of argument as why don't you just opt out then? The thing is, if I didn't exist, then that would take away from the anti-suffering movement, the resistance, the defense for the victims. So, you wouldn't ask a police officer, do you feel bad about tackling a few criminals? Don't you think you should have never been born? He would probably laugh at you.
Right, but see, for somebody like me, right? I know you were talking about the whole selfishness and all of this, right? Don't you see how that would come off as very selfish? Of how you think that you're so special that you have to be alive to preach this message and educate you're holding yourself to an extreme high standard, right? Which if you actually if you actually believed what you believed, right? Don't you think that you coming out, okay, so let's say you spread your message, right?
All right, I'm bored. But no, I mean, I already answered his question, right? If you take away from the anti-suffering team, then you are contributing to the suffering team. The bad people in the world who want suffering to continue. That's just obvious. Okay, let's have Fatima.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, how's it going?
I do agree with you. Before I was anti-natalist, but I've always thought that the ultimate mercy we could offer people is death. We are suffering much more than we are having a good time. And I think this is mercy, but I believe people should have the choice.
You see, that choice and the freedom that you're talking about is the same choice that says, I can go and choose to torture someone, right? So it's not a good thing.
Yeah, I do believe that, but this is against any moral grounding we have been building as a humanity. And
I would say that the fundamental difference is most people say that exploitation is fine, that allowing suffering is fine, causing suffering is acceptable. Extinctionism is about saying, no, it's not acceptable to torture children, to allow children to be tortured, or for anyone to suffer terribly. We should put an end to this and, make sure that no one else has to suffer a life that they never asked for. And, you can't achieve zero suffering without active solutions. Antinatalism is, saying, I know the world is messed up and, I'm not going to bring my child into it, but I'm not going to lift a finger to help any other children from being brought into it.
I do agree.
Those children need the help.
I think all of the children that are going through suffering right now is a reason good enough for this extinction movement. But I believe that every human has the capacity to understand we're just in a prison of how do you say that in English? Of flesh.
Yeah, but unfortunately, everyone has a different brain. They have different preferences, and most people are pretty bad people, right?
Yeah, I do agree that.
And the thing is, the reason for that is that it was necessary to be basically evil and selfish for evolution. So life wouldn't have survived on Earth if we hadn't all, including animals, if we hadn't all been bad people, bad animals, selfish, because if we had been good, then, a lion wouldn't survive very long if it felt guilty when it killed another animal and ate it alive, right? It wouldn't have survived. So being selfish and cruel was actually very beneficial for evolution. But now it's time for us to get rid of that selfishness, to leave it in the past and be selfless and focus on the victims and the sufferers. The current society we live in says, ignore the victims, ignore the sufferers, the rich people and, the happy people are more important. So that's wrong, that's upside down, that's terrible morality. And we're saying, let's fix this, let's focus on the sufferers. They need the help more.
It's true. I've never saw evolution this way, but it's an interesting way to put it. But I don't think it's extreme. Your point of view is extreme, but is going to be seen as extreme. I agree, but I know that the whole world will see that as extreme.
Well, that's what we're trying to change. It's an extremely bad world we live in, and we need solutions for it and to change the world. So if you're interested in joining, you can check out the website proextinction.com.
Okay.
You can read about us, read all about us. Lots of information on the website. And if you want to get involved and help the movement, then the link to our WhatsApp and our Discord groups are at the bottom of the website.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. Okay, I've got time for maybe one more. Let's see. This person's name looks interesting. Albert. Yeah, I'm starting to realize that a lot of the people in my queue that I can accept are no longer here. So I kind of have to accept a few of them. Speaking of which, the queue is now officially empty. If anybody wants to join, now would be a great time. Oh, hello.
Yeah, I got a notification to join.
Hey,
I wanted to ask you, hello. Why do you think suffering is bad?
It just seems obvious, right? It's not like a theory or anything. You know, when you see someone suffering, that's obviously bad. And suffering is also the only bad thing that can be bad, right? It's the only thing that can be bad. You know, if you had a sterile universe with no life, there's no life involved there to have good things or bad things, right? The rocks don't benefit or, you know, have a bad time or a good time. So good and bad only have meaning when life is involved, right? So good things are like safety, happiness. Bad things are obviously pain and suffering.
But I wouldn't say they're obvious, because morality is also subjective. So I can just say the opposite. I can say that suffering is good. I can say that everything that you say, I can say opposite.
The thing is, you don't need to do that, right? You don't need philosophy to understand that punching a baby is a bad thing to do. Okay, it's just obvious, and the people that try and do this subjective morality thing, they are just trying to escape moral obligation, and it's literally nothing but an excuse to be a bad person and to be selfish.
Why is it bad to be selfish? I mean, you can just ask everything to the end of time. Like, why is it bad
to be selfish? Because it's bad for the victims that suffer as a result.
So how do you dictate what's bad and good? Is it just your opinion and that's it? Or how do you dictate it?
Yeah, so you have to be a good person, you have to have a zero tolerance policy on victims and suffering, allowing suffering, causing suffering. You don't need it, right? The thing is that suffering is so extreme and terrible, and that if you actually care about life, then you should care about the suffering and realize that their safety from suffering is more important than the shallow, fleeting pleasures of some selfish people who are trying to say it's all subjective and that they should suffer. But the thing is, like, you know, there's lots of ways to think about it, but, you know, there's no pleasure as intense as is the suffering of a child being raped to death, right? So even on that basis, you know, it's definitely not a 50-50 split by any means. But yeah, unless you have a zero tolerance policy, then you are saying exploitation is acceptable, making others is acceptable. You know, my privilege justifies torturing children. So it's very obvious, really, and the whole objective thing is just people who are either confused or people who are trying to come up with excuses to, you know, say that suffering is acceptable when it's not.
Well, I mean, I can't really argue with you if you're not going to accept objective or subjective morality. I mean, I could just say the opposite thing from you and say that you're selfish.
I can tell you that it's unnecessary, right? That it's strictly unnecessary, right? Except for people who want to find a justification for being selfish.
Well, you can't find a justification for what you're saying. How do you justify morality? Can you do it?
How do you justify? Again, like you're asking, like, can you prove that I should be a good person? It's like, if you need to ask that, then there's something very wrong with you, right? A serious, deep, profound need, dark need within you to be a gross, selfish person. So that's a bad thing, and there's always going to be nasty people like that who, you know, try to come up with reasons to say that children being tortured is okay. It's not okay, and you know, it's unnecessary, and yeah, you think I'm just projecting, and I have no justification. Oh, right, this is coming from the guy that says, like, can you prove that torturing children is bad? Yeah, so I don't care what you say if that's your position, because there's something so profoundly wrong with you that nobody should take you seriously. It's just obvious that suffering is bad and wrong. Hello?
Yeah, I find this whole is suffering really bad Philbro argument extremely frustrating.
I know, right?
I mean, let's take it to its logical extreme, right? And that the only people left are people who somehow enjoy suffering. So they're masochists, okay? And two of these masochists come across each other. And one says, you know, hurt me, please. And the other one's going to say, no. because that would be masochistic. So they're both still suffering. So this idea that we can somehow rescue suffering through this masochism approach is just obviously doomed as well. It's in some ways worse than the utilitarian argument. You just have to end all suffering. That requires galactic extinction. It's simple logic, people. Fighting with a Filbro argument is not going to change this.
Yeah, the thing is that there is no good argument against extinction, because you by default, if you're against extinction, you are saying that children being tortured is acceptable, unlimited suffering is acceptable. It's an inherently evil position and indefensible. And
You try to wrap it up and hide it, but anti-extinctionism is pro-suffering. It is an inescapable two-step logic. And so, again, Filbro defenses, utilitarian defenses, they're just being selfish, defending themselves and the rich. And it's very frustrating to, be here almost every day on the live and listen to these immoral arguments defending the status quo. And I just had to come up and vent.
Would you consider doing some debates yourself and trying to take some of these people on?
It might be enjoyable. Yeah, I mean, not just because here's the thing. We got the long-term goal. And people do bring up this point that there's going to be some brief moments of extreme suffering in order to achieve the long-term goal. So if we can explain how we can achieve the goal with the minimum pain along the way, I'm up for that. Because I think that, people are being very selfish. They're being very narrow-minded. They're focusing on their own existence right now and not thinking about, the world as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's part of the selfishness. So if I can assure them that we're doing our best to minimize this short term to achieve the goal, I would love to help in that regard.
Well, if you didn't do it yet, you should join our WhatsApp if you want to be an activist, and we can definitely talk all about it and, help you get involved.
Okay, I will do so.
The links to our WhatsApp and to our Discord are at the bottom of our website, proextinction.com.
I don't do WhatsApp, but I definitely do Discord, so I'll try to find you there.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you, Eva.
Yep, hope to see you soon. Cheers.
Cheers. All right. What have we got next? James, do you want children one day? I was always against having children. I always hated the idea of it, passionately hated it. I always told people I will never have children. But, now that I'm sort of a slave to the greater good and to selflessness, I have to consider the mission, I have to consider others and whether or not I should morally have a child. So potentially I will, right? It's not something I want, but it's definitely a piece of the puzzle of what should I do and what's necessary for ending suffering and for growing the movement to make it possible. So it's something I would consider. I mean, I guess if I could push a button and it would, make some women pregnant, I'd be doing it nonstop. Yeah, so I don't know if that helps answer your question, but if I could push a little button and it just makes other women pregnant with my child, I'd be doing it. The movement leadership would support that. The logic would support that. So but obviously having a child is a big inconvenience. So at this present time, I'm not looking to do it immediately or anytime soon. Do I have time for more? Yeah, okay. I think we've got time for one more. Let's have a look. All right, Dr. Truthfinder. Next name, hello.
How's it going, mate? I am British. I'm this. I do get where you're at, right? Okay. I put my ex-wife within a couple of weeks. She
Awesome.
probably put me into a situation where basically, oh, I'm a dad now. Like, she probably dicked the fucking condoms and did this and did that, and next thing she was pregnant. And I'm fucking daddy now. But my son and my daughter, they are so intelligent. They were beating my ex-wife like at 4 and 6. They could ski better than her. They could do this. It's like, how the fuck? My ex, yeah, Sophie. I call her well, my ex is Sophie, and she's like, how the fuck do they know more than me? Like, I'm like 40. Like, well, it's like I was 35. She was 37. I was like, how the fuck do they know how to build this fucking motorbike up? I was like, because I've taught them. I'm an engineer. Lol. It's like, yeah, but they know more than me. I was like, well,
Yeah. Do
unfortunately.
you have a question for us?
Well, which way do you want to go with it? Because I have a very broad knowledge. I'm a BEng, I'm a lord, I'm this, I'm that. So which way?
I appreciate you coming on. Maybe read the prompt again before joining the queue. Interesting little, side quest there. I'll give it that. All right, so I do have to go in like 15 minutes or maybe 20 max. So got time for absolutely one last one. If anybody is interested in asking questions. No, Jack. No. You're a violent troll. Your comments could probably get me arrested. You're not coming on the stream. Tess says, you are not credible, James. I suppose I could be a bit more credible. I did actually wear a suit while making a few videos a few months ago. It didn't really boost my views or anything, so I just kind of gave up on it. What do you guys think in the chat? Should I wear a suit while doing my streams? Would that improve the stream somehow? People are saying no, it's probably a bit pretentious. I mean, maybe I'll just do it for YOLO on my next stream. All I need to do is put on a shirt and a jacket. I could be fully clothless underneath. Maybe I am right now. You wouldn't know. Anyway, we've got one more time. Get time for one more guest. Alex, no, you've left the queue. There's 3 people in the queue, but I really don't want to talk to them. And no, it's not because I can't defend my opinion. It's because you're saying stuff like, bruh, I have an intelligent opinion here. What if torturing children is okay? Can you prove it's not? Yeah, so no, we've had enough of those people on the stream. They're just brain dead, really. I'd rather have an interesting conversation with someone. So while we're waiting for a person to request to join, let's try and answer some questions or something. You're not credible. You're not credible because you're pro-life. I am not pro-life. But these people saying that they disagree with the pro-extinction movement because effectively their disagreement is with us having a practical method and plan for total extinction, right? They're saying stuff like, no. If you even have to jab someone in the arm once on the way to total extinction, then it's wrong. These, I can only assume that they're incredibly dishonest or incredibly unintelligent. It just makes no sense. We've had some anti-natalists join the WhatsApp group today, and they were like, no. If you want humans to reproduce to achieve total extinction, then I'm against it. And it's like, okay, so how are you going to achieve total extinction if if there's no humans, you're condemning animals to suffer for millions of years. You're condemning the universe to suffer. And also, antinatalism is a completely self-defeating ideology. If you don't have a child, then someone else will, and they'll laugh at you. And they'll say, ha ha, what a noob. They just gave up their place for my child. Ha ha. Religious zealots especially. Let's imagine the antinatalist, aka voluntary human extinction movement, best case scenario, right? Best case scenario is, quite a few people essentially go extinct, and leave the world to people that don't want to go extinct. So what are they going to do? You're going to have, let's say America becomes a ghost town. What's going to happen to America? Obviously, Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan and all of these Asian countries with high population rates, they're going to be like, time to move in. And we've got so much land now that we can have 50 children each. Ha ha ha. So, even if 99% of them eventually went extinct and eventually somehow agreed with antinatalism, you're still going to have, the defectors, the 1%, the 0.1% that repopulate the entire planet, which will now be far more unintelligent. So you're just replacing, antinatalism effectively replaces, let's not call them intelligent because that's a bit too generous, but it replaces people who are asking kind of the right questions of, is reproduction good or bad, with people that don't question that, and they do it on steroids. So it leaves the world to horny sadists, as I would say, and it also condemns animals and non-human life as well. So it's a completely discriminatory and unrealistic and just ridiculous ideology. Antinatalism will never work. It does nothing to end all suffering. In fact, that's not even really its mission statement, and I guess never has been. It's just, I can reduce harm by making sure I don't bring a child into this world, but don't lift a finger to make sure that no other children are born into this world. Screw them. And even if you're doing antinatalism activism, which some people do, obviously, that's not going to help animals. That will never help animals. So you're prioritizing a tiny, tiny, tiny minority of the planet, which is humanity. We account for less than 0.1% of life on Earth. And we have the best conditions by far compared to the majority of life on this planet, which is wild animals or even farmed animals, but wild animals have it even worse. They get chased by murderous animals all day, every day, while starving to death, while full of parasites, while covered in injuries. Maybe you've only got one eye left, and you're still running from these murderers. But you're not really going to escape. You're going to get caught. You're going to get slashed, tortured, and then eaten alive. So there's nothing good about that experience. Even if it wasn't that terrible, which it is, you still wouldn't want to be an animal, right? I don't understand these people that say, just leave them, it's nature. Being an animal is a horrible experience, right? Even the lucky animals, such as cats and dogs in our houses, even they suffer terribly, okay? Most of the time, your animal is probably bored. They might even be in pain, but they can't tell you. They could be really pissed off most of the time. They could be hating life. They could be depressed. They could be absolutely miserable. And, you're just using them as a toy, effectively. So even the luckiest animals still have pretty bad lives. and they also still have susceptibility to extreme suffering. They can still suffer terribly, but you wouldn't want your dog to live in the woods. You wouldn't want your cat to live in the woods, because that they're going to have probably a horrible time. There's no medicine for them. There's no shelter. So when it's snowing, they're just screwed. They might starve to death. One injury and it's a death sentence, a cruel, very cruel death sentence. So being in nature is the worst thing that you could possibly experience. So the vast majority of suffering is wild animals. They are the biggest population, and the worst suffering is wild animals. So all of these antinatalists, they are massive hypocrites. They are incredibly selfish and immoral and small-minded. Their circle of empathy is tiny compared to the pro-extinction movement. Our circle of empathy, we don't have one. We just have virtually unlimited empathy. We will do whatever it takes. You can kind of think of it this way. The greater amount of suffering is always going to be our main primary driving source of motivation. So as long as, let's say that this is human suffering, as long as there's, this much animal suffering, we're going to go after that bigger amount of suffering. And as long as there's potentially loads of suffering in the universe, whether they exist today or they're going to exist a billion years from now, we can still do something about it. So yeah, that, virtually massive, virtually infinite amount of suffering, that's what we see, that's what motivates us. And effectively the, consideration against that is human suffering, which is, again, tiny in comparison. We have far better conditions. And, we are far smaller in number compared to animals and other life. So that's all we care about is, suffering at large, right? All suffering and all potential suffering, as much suffering as may exist and does exist. Everyone else has a circle of empathy. It might be your girlfriend, it might be your family, it might be your race, it might be your species, humans, like the antinatalists. That is the limit of their empathy and compassion. They don't care about anyone else, they only care about humans, right? They're happy for animals to be tortured, that's a good thing in their opinion. It's gross and it's wrong. So yeah, again, to be in the pro-extinction movement, you have to be committed to whatever it takes to end all suffering and as much suffering as possible. So there's no point at which we'll say, oh, I think that's enough, guys. I'm bored of this now. I think we've done enough. That's what the antinatalist will say. That's what vegans will say. This is enough, right? No, that's not good enough. It's not good enough for the sufferers and the victims. We should help as much life as possible, right? We have another guest joining us. Let's have a look. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you. I've only been listening for 2.5 minutes. And I apologize for that, but you let me on, and I was intrigued by what you're saying because I feel like you're very passionate about it. Yeah. So what's the main point, and we can go from there.
So the pro-extinction movement, which I'm a member of, we're fighting to end all suffering and as much suffering as possible. And the way to do that is with extinction, because it guarantees no more suffering, no more, innocents forced into lives that they never asked for, never wanted, and then they suffer terribly. So until we have total extinction, there will always be unfair suffering, and that should be the priority. The sufferers should take priority over everyone else, especially when the sort of equation, if you will, is We can prioritize selfish people and their grotesque pleasure, or we can prioritize the victims of extreme suffering and their safety, right? So that's what it's about. It's about protecting and defending victims from having to suffer.
So you're saying you're saying kill everything,
We don't.
basically.
We're against killing, but we do want to euthanize all of the animals on the planet.
So hold on. I don't know if you know the definition of euthanize. I think you do, but it's killing,
Right,
regardless.
but the thing is that euthanasia still has its place as a term, and it is the appropriate one here.
So you want to kill everything?
No,
That's your position?
no.
You want extensionism or
Well, I'm glad it wasn't a guest that we had to get into a long conversation with, because again, I don't have much time. But no, he's not the first person to ask this. Someone, people keep asking the exact same question. So you want to kill everything? No, that's not what we want. We want to end suffering. It's a very different thing. But these people, these selfish, disgusting people like that guy, they can't understand empathy. They can't understand responsibility or compassion. They can't understand why suffering is bad. They can't understand why we should protect innocence from suffering. So the whole idea of being a good person is completely alien to them. Is so far and distant from their realm of understanding that they come across someone saying nobody should have to suffer. We should protect everyone from suffering, and they go, "So you want to kill everyone? Like, what are you, evil?" It's obviously very backwards. Anyway, I'm glad you guys are enjoying the stream. Usually it's just a load of people telling me that I'm evil and that I should start with myself. But it looks like people are having a good time today, so that's nice. Yeah, I'm probably going to get going, guys, because my girlfriend's waiting for me. But maybe tomorrow. In the meantime, check out my videos, follow my account on TikTok, and come and look at the website proextinction.com. The links to our Discord and our WhatsApp group, which is more specifically for activists, are on the website. So if you have questions, join the Discord. If you're completely sold and you're like, how I want to help. If you really want to help and get involved, the WhatsApp is the best place to do that. That's where most of our organizing and activism communication takes place. But the Discord is a big server. There's lots of people in it, at least a couple hundred. So come and join the conversation. If you want to ask me questions as well, I'm one of those people that's constantly on Discord, so I'll always be there. If you want to arrange a debate with myself or someone else from the team, then the Discord is also the way to come and arrange that with us. I'm going to get going now, but it's been a really great stream. I'm glad so many people are following and watching and having a great time and learning about empathy and why we should end suffering. And Eva, I'm so sorry that WhatsApp would cause you suffering. That's totally understandable. And until the next time, stay extinct.